Years ago, Airbnb hosts and landlords were seen as modern-day innovators, turning spare and empty apartments into cozy getaways for travelers. It felt like a win-win situation. Hosts earned extra cash, travelers enjoyed a personal home experience, and cities benefited from increased tourism. But fast forward to today, and the narrative has shifted dramatically. Instead of being praised, landlords and hosts now face growing criticism. They are blamed for high housing prices, housing shortages, and disruptive parties. So, what went wrong? Short-term rentals. One of the biggest reasons contributing to the backlash is the impact of short-term rentals on housing. Previously, it was simple. People rented out their spare rooms or houses for extra cash when they were away. But soon, they recognized an incredible money-making opportunity. As a result, many landlords began converting their apartments into full-time Airbnb properties instead of renting them to long-term tenants. This might seem harmless, but in reality, it has had serious consequences. As landlords prioritized short-term rentals over long-term leasing, rental prices began to rise. In cities like Sydney, New York, the Nelson Bay Peninsula, and Paris, locals struggle to find affordable housing because so many properties are now dedicated to short-term stays. Consequently, Airbnb landlords and hosts are facing blame for making housing unaffordable in pursuit of higher profits. In October 2014, there were about 8,261 active short-term rental listings, meaning they had been rented at least once in the previous month across the country. By the end of 2019, just 5 years later, that number had surged to more than 220,000. Had the COVID pandemic not hit weeks later, this number may have continued to grow. Instead, data from July last year shows approximately 168,789 active listings, up slightly from a COVID-era low of around 142,000. The most significant decline occurred in the Nelson Bay Peninsula, a popular holiday destination about an hour north of Newcastle, where the number of active short-term rental listings dropped by more than 60% compared to 2019. Byron Bay also saw a notable decline, with listings decreasing by around 35% from 2,612 in 2019 to 1,697 last year. This decline will undoubtedly impact both landlords and hosts, but it is just the beginning. Legal challenges. Governments worldwide have taken notice of several problems within the unique business model, as hosts and landlords often have conflicting complaints. In response, stricter restrictions and regulations have been introduced to govern short-term rentals in various cities. Some cities with severe housing shortages have banned short-term rentals altogether, while others require Airbnb hosts to obtain special licenses. Additionally, some places impose limits on the number of days a home can be rented out each year. In certain areas, regulations specify that hosts cannot rent out their properties for more than 150 days per year, among other requirements. While many hosts and landlords have welcomed regulations to bring order to the market, some argue that the current rules are excessively restrictive. Efforts to regulate short-term rentals in East Haven date back to at least 2016. In recent years, officials have carefully reviewed regulations implemented in other municipalities while crafting their own. This process underscores the difficulties municipalities face in striking a balance between ensuring the safety and well-being of residents and respecting the rights of property owners. Furthermore, in cities like Amsterdam and Berlin, authorities have taken legal action against landlords who violate these rules. Some Airbnb hosts who fail to comply with the regulations have faced significant fines or even eviction. Many landlords argue that they should have the right to use their properties as they see fit, while governments maintain that stricter rules are necessary to protect long-term housing options for residents. However, Beyond government regulations, an even greater challenge awaits both parties: taxations and fines. Another major reason why Airbnb hosts and landlords face backlash is the increase in fines and taxes on rented properties. Many traditional hotels and rental properties are subject to high taxes, while Airbnb initially bypassed these tax obligations. This sparked outrage among hotels and local businesses who viewed Airbnb as an unfair competitor. Traditional hotels have long argued that Airbnb creates an uneven playing field by avoiding taxes. In response, governments worldwide have started enforcing stricter tax regulations, as seen in Italy, where authorities seized millions from Airbnb for tax non-compliance. Regulatory bodies are now tightening their grip on short-term rentals in multiple countries, including Australia and Italy. According to Italian prosecutors, Airbnb failed to comply with a 2017 law that required short-term rental platforms to collect 21% of landlords' rental income on behalf of tax authorities. This resulted in an order to seize €779.5 million from Airbnb's European headquarters in Ireland. In an effort to resolve the prolonged tax dispute, Airbnb has agreed to pay €576 million, €621 million to Italian authorities. Additionally, starting next year, the Italian government will implement a national identification code for short-term rentals to curb tax evasion by landlords. This situation highlights the growing regulatory challenges Airbnb faces, particularly in the wake of the post-pandemic travel boom. Other cities such as Florence and Venice have also imposed restrictions on new Airbnb listings due to overwhelming tourist influxes. On the Australian platform between January 2018 and August 2021, Airbnb displayed prices using a dollar symbol, but failed to clarify that the prices were in US dollars rather than Australian dollars. As a result, around 70,000 customers mistakenly believed the prices were in Australian dollars. Airbnb admitted to breaching Australian consumer law early in the case. The company attributed the issue to a software bug that failed to default customers in Australia to the local currency. The Australian Federal Court has ordered Airbnb to pay a fine of 15 million Australian dollars for making false or misleading claims. Additionally, the company faces up to $15 million in compensation to affected customers, averaging approximately $230 per person. As a result, some landlords have even raised their prices to cover these taxes and fines, further worsening the situation for renters and travelers. And when affordability takes a hit, frustration only grows. Eviction practices. For 2 years, Shin Tao, an engineer based in Oregon, rented out a Las Vegas house he had purchased as an investment property to a tenant, Ryan Murphy. When Murphy moved out, Tao was blindsided by a $180,000 fine from the city, which claimed the property had been illegally used as an Airbnb rental for 2 years. In a 2024 interview with Business Insider, BI, Tao accused Murphy of operating an Airbnb business from the home without his permission. Tao is now suing Murphy and the short-term rental giant for the full amount of the fine, along with additional damages. Murphy, however, provided a different version of events in a March 2025 interview with Business Insider, claiming that he had informed Tao about his Airbnb arbitrage business. This model involves renting homes in Nevada and other states and then listing them on Airbnb. "I had 7 houses in Las Vegas at the time," Murphy said. "Every single one of the landlords knew." Despite these claims, Murphy has not responded in court and told BI that he does not plan to hire a lawyer for his defense. Tao and his lawyer, Andrew Bao, have also remained silent, not responding to calls or emails requesting comment. This legal battle between Tao and Murphy comes amid a broader crackdown on short-term rentals in cities across the US and Europe. Years of unchecked growth in the vacation rental market have led local governments to impose stricter regulations. In Las Vegas and Clark County, new rules have resulted in homeowners facing fines ranging from $55,000 to $240,000, according to local news reports. But the controversy surrounding short-term rentals extends beyond legal penalties. Landlords in general have come under fire for their treatment of tenants. In some cities, long-term renters have been evicted so that landlords can convert their properties into short-term rentals, maximizing their earnings. But is eviction the only reason for the backlash? Not even close. Social and community backlash. People are fighting back against Airbnb and property owners as short-term rentals reshape the feel of many neighborhoods. In places where Airbnb is common, longtime locals say their streets no longer feel like home. They see a constant flow of tourists instead of familiar neighbors, making it difficult to form lasting bonds or maintain a sense of community. Some areas now have such a high concentration of short-term rentals that they resemble hotel districts more than residential neighborhoods. Residents argue that as landlords chase bigger profits through Airbnb, their communities are losing their unique character and stability. Many long-term renters who have called these areas home for years can no longer afford to stay, as property owners prioritize short-term guests over permanent tenants. But the issue goes beyond just a loss of community spirit. Short-term rentals have also led to increased noise complaints, disruptive parties, and even criminal activity. While long-term tenants typically value a quiet neighborhood, short-stay visitors often treat rental homes as temporary party spots. Cities such as Los Angeles, Miami, and Barcelona have had to implement stricter regulations after reports of excessive noise, property damage, and even violent incidents linked to Airbnb properties. Homeowners living near these vacation rentals say they feel uneasy, never knowing who their next-door neighbors will be. Some have taken matters into their own hands by forming community groups to push for tighter restrictions or outright bans on short-term stays. The escalating conflict between Airbnb property owners and local residents has transformed the platform from an innovative idea into one of the most controversial issues in housing today. The future of Airbnb. What's next? The golden era of Airbnb may be fading, but its impact on housing, travel, and local communities remains undeniable. As stricter regulations reshape the industry and public sentiment continues to shift, the platform faces an uphill battle. Will Airbnb adapt and find new ways to thrive? Or is this the beginning of its downfall? One thing is certain: housing markets, governments, and frustrated renters won't let things go back to the way they were. The battle over short-term rentals is far from over, and the next few years will determine whether Airbnb remains a travel powerhouse or becomes just another failed experiment in the gig economy.